My dear friends, this is my 8th talk to you. And this talk will contain having the word connect. How do we connect with theology, the various tracts that we learn about God and the church? Secondly, how do we connect to God in prayer and through the sacraments? And third, how do we connect in the highs and lows that we go through in life, when the good times are there and not so good moments? Let me take the first one. Certain tracts from theology come to my mind, and I'm here not to expound on the theology of it, but just to tell how we can get the essence of it for our own renewal, and also to see how this helps in our pastoral work. Whether we are lay people or whether we are clergy, religious, to everyone, we need to bring down the theology that we learn or hear into the day-to-day life of us and our people. Let's take the first one, Trinity. 3 persons in one God. A communitarian spirituality. A consciousness among God the Father, Son, and the Spirit. One flows into the other. That actually is the very basis for us to form small Christian communities. As the Father, Son, and Spirit flow into one another, we too need to flow with the power of the church into the life of the community and the spirit of the world. So this is what we need to bring into our life, a communitarian spirituality, not an individualistic spirituality. And when we talk to people or we get in touch with them, many still profess an individualistic spirituality. How do we bring a communitarian spirituality to them? And this flows from the tract of Trinity. Let's take the second one, creation and redemption. We are co-creators with God. Inasmuch as He has created us, He has also invited us to build on that creation and redeem the world. In simple words, we bring the theology of creation and redemption into the day-to-day living of our people. How, in the midst of all their struggles, they create something out of the confused things in life. And how do they redeem a situation? We too need to, in simple words, bring this tract of creation and redemption into the ordinary lives of our people. Third, Christology, the God among us. I like that word, God with us, Emmanuel. In good times, not so good times, in happiness, in sorrows, in good moments wherein we are right on top, or the other moments when we are down, depressed. At all times, God journeys with us. This is Christology in simple words, that the Good Shepherd journeys with us. If this is brought and assimilated into our lives, we can then proclaim the God with us to our people. The fourth one, Ecclesiology. A lot of change has taken place. They say there is a paradigm shift in the learnings of ecclesiology. The one of sacramental has given way to one of service. An ecclesiology of service now remains. And so when we talk about the church, ecclesiology, an assembly or people. We are necessarily talking about people serving. The Eucharist challenging us to live the Eucharist and break ourselves and pour out our goodness into the lives of all. This is, in simple words, ecclesiology to our people. When we talk about grace, grace is a relationship, a simple word to define it. The relationship God has with us. This is powerful. It must be seen in our lives. And if it is seen in our lives, we can convey this relationship of God through the tract of grace and mercy to our people. The grace is sufficient for us, and therefore we need to apply that grace and be confident that this graceful power and blessing of God is there in our midst. Take the next tract, sacraments. One thing is to understand the sacraments that we have studied as a part of our subject. The other thing is to live the sacraments. Every sacrament is inviting us to live the sacraments. Baptism invites us to live a community life as the child is introduced to the community. Confirmation to a life of commitment. Eucharist, breaking yourself and being of service. The reconciliation, confession is one to kind of be reconciled with one another, especially in our family, with our neighbors, with everyone else, and so on and so forth. So we need to live the sacraments. So when we see a sacrament being performed, we witness it, we need to live that sacraments. And that is what we need to convey to the people, not only participate in the sacraments, but live the sacraments. And the powerful thing is the Eucharist. We need to live the Eucharist. I'll come to that a little later on in my preaching this time. The other tract is of priesthood. We talk necessarily of the priesthood of the laity. We have learned that there is such a thing as ministerial priesthood and the priesthood of the laity, the common priesthood. And so, I, as a ministerial priesthood person, I am challenged to bring alive the common priesthood, the priesthood of the laity. I need to ignite this priesthood of the laity so that they realize that in as much as we clerics are priests, but ministerial priests, we have a certain function. They are also priests, the laity, and they have a role to perform. I leave it to you how you can best explain all these tracts to people who come in contact with. What I basically want is, let not the theology we learn remain in our books, remain in our wisdom, in our minds, but never gets applied to day-to-day living. These are the tracts we need to kind of bring down in simple words and tell people, you are living the Trinity. You are living the part of creation and redemption. You are conscious of the fact that God is with you. You are part of the new ecclesiology, the new church of service. Be aware of the relationship, the grace that you have been filled with. Live the sacrament and be aware that we are all called to be priests, as mentioned in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. These days, let me get into something else, connect with the theology, and now we connect with something of the image of God has come through the sacraments. I refer to the passages on Sunday, especially these days, which says about, I am the bread of life, the long discourse that goes on in John's Gospel. We have the I am statements. We are all aware of it. I am the bread in chapter 6. I am the light in chapter 8. I am the gate in chapter 10. I am the good shepherd in chapter 10. I am the resurrection and life in chapter 11. I am the way, truth and life in chapter 14. And I am the vine, you are the branches in chapter 15. 7 I ams. I am was a sacred phrase. I am who I am. So no one uttered it because this was a phrase left to the gods alone. And so the beautiful statements have come down to us, I am, in John's Gospels. I just take the first one that came. I am the bread of life in chapter 6 verse 35. To the people, Jesus gave the bread when they were hungry. To the leper, he gave the bread of physical healing. To Mary Magdalene, the bread of forgiveness. To the Samaritan woman, the bread of kindness. To the rejects in society, the bread of sympathy. To Zacchaeus, the bread of awakening. And to the thief, right at the cross, the bread of reconciliation. We hunger for a feeling of importance. Without it, I'm not finding my roots. I am nothing. We hunger for a feeling of acceptance. Otherwise, life becomes meaningless. We hunger for relationship, motivation. We hunger for trust and we hunger for hope. Without it, we drift. We are like sailing without the wind. We are desperate. In our confusion, we need to bring this bread of life to lift us up. In our emptiness, we need to bring this bread of life to fill us. In our weakness, we need to bring this bread of life to strengthen us. In our sinful nature, we need to bring the bread of life to cleanse us. And in our brokenness, we need to bring the bread of life to touch us and make us whole. Permit me to share about the Eucharist. The other day I was giving a talk on the Eucharist to a certain group, and leaving aside the theology of it and the different parts that explain the liturgical aspects of Eucharist, my talk mainly was, what does it do to you? What does it do to you? And I shared with them 4 points. Over the years, I found that with the Eucharist, I get aligned to God. I am in a technical school, and where cars come in for different repairs or maintenance, and many cars come for alignment, a simple thing wherein the wheels are not balanced and the car's alignment has gone off. So we need to do that little thing to align ourselves, to keep our balance. Otherwise, we will get swayed away. Our orientations will get off the track. So I need to get aligned, and the Eucharist helps me to get aligned. Secondly, with the Eucharist, I work through my brokenness. I see the limitations in my life, fragmentations. And I'm surprised at times how patient I am, how wise I am, that in spite of my brokenness, the Lord has done wonders. And it is definitely the Eucharist that works through my brokenness. As St. Paul says, when I am weak, the strength of God is manifested. Third, with the Eucharist, I bounce back to life. I allow God to intervene into my life and show His grace. To let God be God in our lives. Very often we don't do that. We want to persevere with our own plans. Bouncing back to life, I'm able to go beyond. That's what Eucharist means for me. And the fourth one, the Eucharist, I discover God in the ordinary things of life. That is precisely the down-to-earth meaning of God with us. I do my part. I'm proud of it because in my work, God was also there. I discover meaning in the ordinary things I do because God is there. The ordinary things everyone does become extraordinary because God is there. Joseph Cardine, the famous cardinal who started the workers' movement, had this phrase which I very much like and am motivated with it. He said, you come to the church, you face the altar for half an hour or 1 hour, but there are other altars in your life. The kitchen table, the workbench, the equipments that you have, your daily work routine, there is the other altar. On the altar in the church, the Christ's blood flows. On these other altars from Monday to Saturday, your blood, sweat and tears flow. From this altar in the church, you gather the strength to discover God on the other altars of life. So I ask the child, have you found this study table as an altar wherein God has been present? I tell the worker, have you been able to find God when you have been to the factory or you're working in an office? Have you found God? I asked those who are at home, women who have been in the kitchen. That is the altar on which their blood, sweat and tears flow, and God is present there. I want to sum up to tell you how God can be connected in the highs and lows of life. I was reading a book. The book mentioned about the 7 mountains and the 7 valleys. Very interesting book. The first one, if you go to Google, you'll find all this given there, so I don't need to display on the screen. Talking about the mountains, Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is associated with Moses. And so, at times we are on Mount Sinai when we encounter God. So that's the mountain that is visible in our life. Think for yourself. Where has been the occasion of Mount Sinai? Which phase of your life? The second one, Mount Moriah, where Abraham was about to sacrifice his son. And there, the truth of real faith was established. Which is that occasion or episode or part of your life which has been Mount Moriah, wherein you had to possibly sacrifice a lot, wherein you had possibly to establish your faith? Think about it. The third one, Mount Tabor, where the transfiguration took place. Where are the moments in life wherein we have been able to transform ourselves from something to better? These are the Mount Tabors in our life. If we have been able to establish these, I think you are able to connect with God being in these moments of your life. The fourth one, the Sermon on the Mount. It's called Mount Beatitude, or they have another name for it when you go to Holy Land on a tour, where we are taught about basic values. Be happy attitudes of life. Robert Schuller has that book, Be Happy Attitudes. They are the Beatitudes. wherein we have experienced the knowledge of being happy. And we have had that happy attitude in life. That occasion when you get it, you can say you have been on Mount Beatitude. The fifth one, Mount Olivet, the Gethsemane. Mount Olivet near Gethsemane, the agony in the garden. Where has been the occasion where you have agonized, where you have felt that God has abandoned you, where you felt that these things should pass away. I cannot do it alone. I cannot bear this all by myself. Then you are at Mount Olivet. Why am I sharing this with you? Because then you can connect so well and you can get the power. Once you connect to a particular mount or mountain, you get well connected with the power of God. The next one, of course, Mount Calvary. Not so much as the sacrifice, but the redemption that took place, wherein you were redeemed yourself, or you brought about some kind of a redemption in the life and the work that you are associated with, or in the life of people who come in contact with. Where was this Mount Calvary? Wherein you were there to redeem part of your life, or you brought redemption through the work or through the people who came in contact with. And the seventh one, they said, is Mount Zion, where God abides. Every day there must be a Mount Zion in your life. Some fraction of a moment wherein you will sense that God has just appeared. Special appearance, as they say in the movies, makes a special appearance. God abides. And I have this phrase, God drops his visiting card every day through the events that come and through the people that come into our life. He drops his card giving us a message to say that he abides. That's the Mount Zion. So we have Mount Sinai, Mount Moriah, Mount Tabor, Mount Beatitude or Sermon on the Beatitude, Mount Olivet, Mount Calvary, and Mount Zion. Very interesting, that book also gives us the 7 valleys. 7 valleys. And I can associate myself with these valleys. It's very nice to go through this, and so much of power and reflections come alive. The first one they name is the Valley of Siddim. It's called the Valley of Sin, Sodom and Gomorrah. Sin abounds. Selfishness abounds. Have you been into that Valley of Siddim or Valley of Sin? Surely all of us. Small sins, big sins, but something that has taken us away from God. Somewhere we have given to the influence of the world. At that moment, we are in the Valley of Sin. The second one is the Valley of Eshcol, they say, the Valley of Decision. This valley is located in the Promised Land, wherein Israelites decided to move with God and leave aside Egypt or their former bosses, the pharaohs. It's a valley where they made the decision. Where was the decision, important decision in your life? You have been through that valley, whether at home, with the family, or joining the priesthood, or joining the religious, or at ordinary things when you have made an important decision in your career. One phase of your life, moving into another phase where you have made that decision. The Valley of Kidron, It's called the Valley of Suffering. It's between Jerusalem and the Mount Olivet, and it's called the Valley of Suffering, where you have gone through the Good Fridays of life. I've given a discourse on what the Good Fridays of life are, where there is suffering, struggles, and you felt that you were abandoned. And you said, Lord, why have you abandoned me? Into your hands then comes the words of God. I am called to surrender. The Valley of Suffering, the Valley of Kidron. The fourth one, the Valley of Illah. It's the valley wherein the battle took place, the famous one, David and Goliath. Where did we enter into some battle against a great force, and we thought that we would never win, and we did win it. And if such moments come, then you know you can connect with the Valley of Illah. All these things you get in that book. But if you go into Google also and you put 7 valleys, you will get that. I'm helping you to connect your life experiences to the mountains and the valleys of the Bible, and that to the highs and lows of life. That's the Valley of Illah, the valley where battles take place, and wherein you are surprised that you are able to kind of surmount a formidable person on the other side. The fifth one is the Valley of Achor. Not sure whether the pronouncing is the right one, but it's the Valley of Punishment. It's the Valley of Punishment wherein people were put for correction, or they were told that you need to correct yourself. Where has this been in your life? The Valley of Punishment, wherein it's not so much punishment as you take a 180 degree or 360 degrees away from the life you are leading and orient yourself towards God, where you correct yourself. Somewhere a sharp change in your life becomes the Valley of Achor, the Valley of Correction. The sixth one is the Valley of Gehenna. It's the Valley of Death. Actually it's a garbage dump in somewhere near Jerusalem, and that is considered like hell, death. And that valley reminds people of hell, the kind of unpleasant things that are there in life. And so, when have you been in that kind of a situation where you have faced pain, where you have faced death, where you are faced with all the rubbish that comes from the world? The Valley of Gehenna, the Valley of Pain, the Valley of Death, the Valley of all rubbish things being there. And the last one, the Valley of Jezreel in Israel. It's called the Valley of Triumph. That people celebrated that God is with us against any force. Surely you have also been through this valley of triumph, especially when things were not going your way and you have got some strength, support, or when there was a loss in the family, a crisis in the family, you went through pain, and then comes the triumph, you have moved out of it. You have been through this valley. So, I summarize the valleys in our life. The Valley of Siddim, sin. The Valley of Eshcol, decision, where we make decisions. The Valley of Kidron, where we go through suffering. The Valley of Illah, where battles take place and we have won it, though we might not be the stronger force. The Valley of Punishment or Achor, where corrections take place in our life. The Valley of Gehenna or death, wherein we have faced pain and death, and the valley of Jezreel, the valley of triumph, wherein Good Fridays have turned into Easter Sundays with the power and the blessings of God. So right through, what have we done in this retreat that we have given? In this retreat, we have, first talk was on the call, and we focused on what that call would mean. The second talk was on the images of God. The third talk was on the leadership of Jesus. The fourth talk was on Mary and Joseph. The fifth talk was on death and resurrection, the Good Friday and the Easter Sunday. The sixth talk was how we can confront fears, conflicts, troubles, being weary, being burdensome. As I mentioned, we brought about various disciplines, other disciplines, social disciplines into spirituality. The seventh talk was, how can we be effective? This retreat should change us, at least 1%, if not more. So I gave you all the 7 things, the 7 principles, the questions, the challenges, the orientations or the guidelines. I gave it to you, I shared with you. And this 8th talk, I based on the word connect. How you connect theology into day-to-day living, how you connect the God of our life, the sacraments into our day-to-day living, and how you connect the highs and lows that you will go through. You will go through the mountains, you will go through the valleys, and figure yourself where you are at different moments of your life. God bless you.
When there's no place to go, you think no one knows what you're going through. When you've done all you can, you're exhausted, my friend, and there's nothing else left you can do. When life overwhelms you or someone betrays you, you feel like nobody cares. There's still one place I know. When there's no place to go, I go to the Master in prayer. I go to the Master. He always listens. He welcomes my pleas because he cares about me. He won't overlook my petition. He's standing above and he's watching in love. He's waiting my burdens to bear. He's got time for you and a place for me too. I go to the Master in prayer. When the world turns on me, I'm so blind I can't see. Doubts are everywhere. When my friends turn me down and my spirit is bound, I can't rise above all my fears. When pain won't release me, there's no peace within me. I'm feeling like life isn't fair. When my night's sleep is lost and I've turned and I've tossed, I go to the Master in prayer. I go to the Master. He always listens. He welcomes my pleas because he cares about me. He won't overlook my petition. He's standing above above, and He's watching in love. He's waiting my burdens to bear. He's got time for you and a place for me too. I go to the Master in prayer. Yes, I go to the Master. He always listens. He welcomes my plea because He cares about me. He won't overlook my petition. He's standing above and He's watching in love. He's waiting my burdens to bear. He's got time for you and a place for me too. I go to the Master in prayer. If your life's a dead end, I can still recommend you can go to the Master in prayer.